today we're going to talk about onboarding and training your new drivers. So I'm going to go over a little bit of what we normally do in the first week of onboarding and the things you need to make sure you do, and then talk a little bit about the training side. I will say, I'll give you a brief overview of how we train now, but one of the big things I'm going to talk about today is that there is a big update to the way safety training is going to be done in the FedEx space. So I'm going to go over what those changes look like in the timeline there as well. So just to start with what it is now and what an onboarding first week for a driver looks like. Generally, first, I would just say prepare and expect that first onboarding period to be about a week. And it's going to kick off once they have cleared First Advantage, which is the background check vendor that FedEx uses to get all of your drivers through the system. So the trigger for you is that your driver is going to get the SIG, or a safety information guide. They will get that and have to sign off on it. And once that is done, it's the trigger that your driver is compliant with FedEx and ready to log into a scanner. They can't do any of that before then. So when they reach that point, that is effectively day one of onboarding. And so they are able now to log into a scanner. And what we like to do on that day is make sure that your employee agreement with things like what they're going to be paid, the terms of the agreement, any policies and procedures that you want to outline for your business are all laid out in that document. And then you get both parties to sign off on it just to make sure that all of the expectations are properly set for that driver from the very beginning. So that's day one. They got logged in, they're compliant, they've signed the employee agreement. The next 2 days, normally what we do is we have either a lead driver or manager sit with that new hire and teach them how to use the scanner. And maybe that's riding along where they're in the truck with that lead driver. And what they're doing is figuring out what the codes are on the scanners, when to use them, how to do things like pickups, basically all of the things that aren't strictly intuitive that a new driver wouldn't know, just so that they understand the ins and outs of the business and how to run the scanners in the day-to-day. Normally, right now, we will then spend the next 2 days on some kinds of driving tests and in-road hours with that trainer. And right now, that's how we do it, where there's the ride along, and after that's done, it'll be basically that trainer will then sign off on the driver, say, hey, they know how to do the scanner, they know how to drive the truck, they're ready to go. And then effectively, that is now the point where that driver is ready to get in a truck and be on their own. Sometimes that's after the fifth day or the sixth day, depends on how comfortable you feel with that driver. But really, this is the kind of part of the onboarding that is going to diverge with the new process. So the safety training and the road testing is going to become pretty different now with the new standards that are rolling out. So the big change that's happening is that it's all about the way that you're training and qualifying those drivers. You will now have to produce a qualification certification from a qualified provider that you'll have to then show to FedEx for each of your drivers to show that this driver is qualified to operate that vehicle. And so there are a few different options for how FedEx is going to let you do this. Option one is that you will be able to train one of your employees to be a certified trainer who can then train the rest of your employees and future hires. It's kind of like a train the trainer program where you'll send them to a qualified provider to get trained how to be a trainer for everybody else. Option two is if you can't get a qualified provider or you can't get a trainer from your own staff, you can send each of your drivers individually to the vendors, the qualified providers right now, to have each driver approved that way. And right now, the 4 qualified providers are JJ Keller, Smith System, Ground Cloud, and Impact Solutions. So right now, those are the only 4. Maybe that'll change in the future, but for now, those are the 4 you have to use if you want to go through this program. The third option is if you can't send them there, you don't have anyone on your own staff who can be a trainer, is if there is another contractor at the terminal who has a certified trainer, that trainer can also train your staff. There's things you're going to have to figure out between you and that other contractor around scheduling and getting time and probably some kind of compensation for that trainer. But that is a third option. One trainer in the terminal could train everyone. It's just a matter of time and payment. So Main one I want to start by talking about is the one that everyone's going to be concerned with, which is how do I get my own certified trainer and what does that process look like? So the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out if any of your employees are qualified to be a certified trainer or to be sent to be a trainer. And there are a few kind of key things to look at. So they have to first, get certified from a qualified provider, one of those four I mentioned. But to be able to do that, they have to have been working with someone with FedEx, someone with a FedEx agreement for the last year, for at least 12 months. And then in the last 12 months, they cannot have any preventable accidents. So 12 months consecutive of working with a FedEx contractor or under a FedEx agreement. And in the last 12 months, they cannot have had a preventable accident. And then they also currently have to be qualified to drive the largest vehicle that they'll be training on. So if they're qualified for the largest vehicle, they can train anything smaller than it, but they just have to be able to drive the largest vehicle they'll be training on. And then you will send them to this program, and it is a 5-day kind of like a defensive driver training course in a train the trainer format, where there will be in person, there will be some online things. And once they have passed this test or passed this program, it will be valid for the next 24 months. So going through this program has a 2-year timeline after that they will continue to be a certified trainer. Now, once they have come back and they are officially a certified trainer, they then have to train all of your drivers. So they are responsible for both the class and knowledge checks and the road testing. This applies to both your current and your new drivers. So for current drivers, it is a shorter program. It's only a 2-day course. There's online classroom training and an observed road check. The main thing that it does not have is something called observed drive time. So with new drivers, there's still the online classroom training, there's still the road check, but they also have to have 8 hours of observed drive time. And those 8 hours have to be observed within the first 2 days of them starting the program. They have to be within 2 days consecutively. They have 21 days to get the observed training done. But once you start observing, the 8 hours have to occur over a 2-day period. So new drivers have about a 3-day training course, and current drivers will have about a 2-day training course. So you'll come in and you'll try to basically train all of your current drivers all at once to get them compliant with the new methods. And then new drivers will be one-off for as many as you're hiring at once in those kinds of programs. And then this course is going to cost about $2,600 to $2,900, depending on the qualified provider. And that's the overview of the course. And I know that the important thing that a lot of you who are either looking to buy soon or are current contractors need to know is the timeline. So if you're not aware, it's coming up quick. And if you either are purchasing a contract and standing up or renewing your current contract before April 2nd, you will have until June 4th to be compliant with this new training standard. So if you're before April 2nd, you have until June 4th. If you stand up after April 3rd, you only have 45 days. So it's 45 days from that point on that you will have to get compliant. So that is what, 2 weeks away from now. So I'm sure there are some of you who hopefully this isn't the first time you've heard about it, but it is coming very quickly. There's probably going to be some challenge in this transition, but ultimately I do think this is a good thing for the industry. It is a good thing to have a set standard for safety. It's going to improve your company's compliance and safety, make FedEx safer. Sure, that's why they're implementing it, but it also is going to make your business safer, save you money and time, get in less accidents, hopefully. It is also a much quicker way to get people trained. It's 3 days, regardless of their previous experience. So they could have never driven before, and then they go through this 3-day course and they can drive in any vehicle that they are certified through after that training. So you don't have to do the graduated certification that you've had to do in the past to get up to the larger vehicles. So that is all good. And I think, again, this is ultimately good news, but this is just going to be about navigating this transition period and the rocky waters between now and then. And then we'll get there. But that really what I wanted to do is talk about that today and make sure that we're open for questions later so that we can try to help you start to feel comfortable in the coming months. Now, That's the main changes on training that I wanted to cover, but there's a couple of other things I want to just talk about on the onboarding side with drivers and just things that I want you to think about, just quick tips we've seen. One thing for sure is if you do not have a cell phone charger in every vehicle, you should tell the drivers to bring it for their first, that should just be part of the onboarding experience. Is you should recommend they bring their own charger. They're going to need their phone throughout the day, maybe GPS if something isn't working, or if they need to contact you or the AO, that phone needs to be working. We put chargers in all of our trucks. And what that helps you do is also avoid some of those. If a driver says, oh, my phone was dead, so that's why I didn't answer, they can't make that excuse if there's a charger in every truck. Another thing to tell them in that entry period is make sure they bring water. It is a very physically active day, and if they may not have time to stop and get water, so make sure they bring that so they don't get dehydrated. And then another thing is make sure they're at least considering bringing a lunch. They may not have time to stop during the day, so it's a lot easier if they can just bring a lunch and handle that. One other thing I would tell you, if you're familiar with Vetter technology or if you aren't, it's basically the two-way camera that both looks into the vehicle and out, almost like a dash cam. And I would strongly recommend in the first few weeks and months for new drivers paying a little bit closer attention to them through those cameras and try to see if there are any bad habits you can nip in the bud early before they become issues. So you can just coach them on anything like not wearing their seatbelt or texting, and be just especially more sensitive to that for a new driver.